Space.
Oh, it's recording. Okay, cool. So we'll start in 3 and 2 and 1.
Hello, good morning, Sonia. Just to introduce the reason that we're chatting today. So the reason we're putting this together is because, as we all know, the last year has been very challenging for all of us. There's been lots of changes going on, and we wanted to sort of cultivate a space where we could talk about less of the negative and more of the looking forward to better futures for 2021. And as we all know, the part of what we do has been quite disrupted heavily, and this is just a space where we can talk about what it is that you've been doing, and what the communities around you have been doing, and just sort of how we can get a better insight into everything that has been going on. So if you could just start off by sort of introducing yourself to the audience and a little bit about who you are and the work you do.
Well, thanks very much, Tibby. It's great to be invited to share here, and that's one of the great things, I think, of the pandemic, is that it has really brought so many people together online to share their experience, and it's generated a lot of interest in how we're all in our different walks of life and different countries experiencing this common situation. I work for Education for All Morocco, and we are a Moroccan association. We also have a sister charity that's registered in the UK. And our mission is to decrease high levels of illiteracy for girls in rural, remote areas of Morocco. The illiteracy rates are very high in these remote rural areas because the communities live in villages that are high up in the mountains where there's maybe no road access at all. The schools are located in the towns, so it could be a 4-hour walk to school, and that's not really practical to do every day. And for girls, there is also the added aspect of families wanting to protect them, so not wanting them to make long journeys by foot or jump in the back of a public truck or something like this. So because of the remote location and because of concerns about girls end up staying at home rather going to secondary school. And so Education for All has a solution to that, and that's to run and build safe boarding houses for girls, and we build those close to the schools in the towns, and so the girls can come and stay with us Monday to Friday and then go home at the weekend. So it makes the access to school possible, and we've been doing that since 2007. So we're still around now, and we're not only still around, but we're growing because the project has been a huge success. 10 girls came to us in the beginning, and now we have 250 girls that come to us. So we expanded because there was trust in the community. The community saw it was actually a positive thing to educate their daughters rather than anything that came with concerns. And it's something that's really been taken on board by the local area. Attitudes have changed towards educating girls, and people have shown an interest in supporting our work so that we can grow our places, our capacity, as it were. One thing that's very interesting about the EFA boarding houses is not just that they give girls access to school, but also we provide a very safe and stimulating environment for the girls. It's the first time they actually can ever focus on themselves. They come from villages that are very poor, so they are involved in all kinds of things when they're at home, domestic work, looking after siblings, no washing machine, so you take the clothes down to the river and spend hours washing them and hours drying them. So these girls have a certain life at home that doesn't support academic learning, even if they could go to school. What we see is that by being with us Monday to Friday, we can focus entirely on them and they can explore their academic potential. We have lots of books in the houses, we have computers, things they don't have at home. So not only is their world opening up by going to school, but it's opening up by this new environment that they can be in that's very different from their home environment. And that has shown incredible results. Their academic results are almost double the national average. They end up speaking 4 languages by the time they leave us, and many are now going on to university. So this is a huge jump from being a girl from a poor village whose mother and grandmothers are illiterate, and suddenly they have this new world. Now, that's the success of EFA, the absolute importance of educating girls in our society. It's so crucial. However, when the pandemic struck, we were faced with a new situation. So to respond a bit more to this particular discussion, we had to close the houses for the first time in 13 years. And the girls had to go back to their villages for many months, 3 months during the lockdown. And so this highlighted a few things. It highlighted why these girls are at such a disadvantage living in these remote rural areas. They had no access to online learning. It wasn't easy for them to keep studying. They don't have devices. They don't have internet. They're really isolated when they're back home. And then on top of that, they have all the household chores and things like this. Another element is once they're back at home, some of the older attitudes start creeping back in. Better to have the girl married than just hanging around the house. Things that when they're with us, they're not exposed to on a daily basis. So we really got to see the importance of the boarding houses and what they offer. And we also got to see the huge inequalities and disadvantages that girls face in this region. So that was really interesting for us to know what value we're really giving even now, and how something like a pandemic and a national lockdown really impacts on girls from rural areas. And of course, lots of research has come out to say they are the most affected during a pandemic. Girls and women are the most negatively impacted. So it's been a big learning for us. Luckily, after the summer of 2020, we opened the boarding houses again, even if it's at 50% capacity because of social distancing. So we're rotating the girls a week on, a week off, but they are just so happy to be there. We know this is a temporary situation. And yeah, we just responded in that time. Well, one example of what we did was we did a big fundraising campaign to get devices for the girls, for the older girls that were about to sit their final exams, but were stuck in a lockdown back in their village. So we successfully fundraised for tablets with SIM cards and lots of internet. And it gave the girls at least a lifeline to their studies, to be able to connect with each other, to be able to connect with us. So that's one example of the solutions we've brought at this time.
That's incredible response, Sonia, thank you. I get the sense that the scholarship and the academic side is really important, but I think I was picking up a lot of this sort of female network sort of situation that goes on. And I think that's something that's really just as important as learning, is that socialization to sort of understand your potential and value, and why gender plays such an important role in that, because, you know, it exists almost everywhere. It's just the amount in which it occurs, in which domestic ideology follows women throughout their lives. So like thinking, because I love what you were explaining about the girls when they're sort of together, and the young women with the staff. Something that we were interested in is like, so how, outside of their academic learning, which it sounds like is phenomenal, how do they sort of get creative and sort of express themselves, and the activities that you think are important for that?
Well, that's a great question. And yes, as I mentioned, the houses are more than just a place to access the schools. They're a home away from home from the girls. And that's important, because to leave your family at the age of 12 so that you can access education is not easy for some of the girls. So they're coming to us, you know, obviously they're quite young. Many of them are extremely shy. A lot of them don't really have so many other life skills because they are living in quite a remote setting. So they come to the EFA houses, suddenly they've got lots of girls from their, you know, surrounding villages around. So they immediately come into a kind of a really strong network. the house mothers are key to this whole conversation because they are also local Berber women. They're not like people that have been plopped in there from the UK, or, you know, they're local women. And this is really important because that keeps the cultural bridge between where these girls are coming from and where they're coming into. So immediately they can just relax, you know, they're within their customs, they're not being asked to change. However, these house mothers are really powerful women. So suddenly they've got like a role model. They've got other women, you know, older women from their communities who are themselves educated by many different many different reasons that they managed to get educated. It wasn't easy for them, but for example, our head house mother, Latifa, the reason she went to school is that when she was growing up, she was in a big family, and it wasn't easy for the parents to look after all the siblings, also just the costs of that. So Latifa was sent to live with her aunt and uncle in Marrakesh, and because she was in Marrakesh, there are lots of schools everywhere. There isn't the issue of living in a remote place, no transport. No. So she was able to go to school. So she was lucky, and she went on to university. But, you know, she can then be a role model for these girls. Look, you know, you can be like me. This is not something outside of your culture. And that's very important. We also run an international volunteer program. So this is where we kind of open the horizons of the girls as well beyond their culture. This is how we know Souljourn yoga and Jordan, and, you know, people that bring different activities into the houses. So for example, the girls have learned yoga thanks to Jordan and her project, you know, running these amazing yoga retreats in Marrakesh, and then coming up to the EFA houses, visiting, doing yoga with the girls, and also donating through her activities to sponsor girls. So this is an example of a lovely activity that has a really kind of sustainable and positive impact in the area in the High Atlas. So they're learning things like yoga, they're doing different activities with the volunteers, music, art, things that aren't necessarily a focus in their own schools even. So these extracurricular activities are really exciting. We also just recently teamed up with a Moroccan filmmaker and did a really nice event where we collected messages of support from prominent Moroccan women, and then played these videos at the houses. The girls watched, and then they discussed how it made them feel to know that women were becoming, you know, professionals in different areas, running their own businesses, and just to express what that means to them. So, you know, we have these kind of activities where they get to really open up discussions about what it means to be a Moroccan woman, what's possible. So again, these are all things that are outside of their curriculum, but are really key to inspire them to go beyond any limitations they might have. We're also starting up a mentorship program with a company in Morocco called Intrepid. It's a huge travel company, and they've also sponsored many girls through donations to us through their global foundation. So we're discussing now, okay, how can we link up one of the girls who leaves EFA to have a mentor, a professional woman who can then, you know, support them, give them confidence, help them network, like you said. So it really is a huge sisterhood. The girls themselves are in a community of other girls like them, but with this new opportunity. The house mothers, empowered women, again, who show what's possible. International volunteers, other women from other countries, showing again what's possible beyond the mountain, and then linking professional women around Morocco who have a very different experience of life because they've come from cities, for example, but then can use their experience and their networking to support these girls to reach their potential. So it is a huge kind of women's empowerment project when you look at it like that. And I think that's what makes these girls succeed way beyond what we ever actually even imagined was possible for them when we started.
No, entirely. It sounds like the balance between reflecting on ingenuity and custom, and then mixing that with outside of that, in a sense, and sort of being able to take what's inherently yours, and learning from other people and teaching as well, because it's this whole idea of exchange is what I think the work that we do with Souljourn is so important, because every time we go to teach yoga, what we end up doing is leaving with just as much knowledge about people and about the way that they adopt something. So the essence of learning is that there's always, it's reciprocative, isn't it? So there's the giving and there's the taking. And I think what's so interesting in that is that what these women give is just outstanding. It's a product of what they're given, and it's just enormous and mind-blowing. We mentioned about having yoga, experiencing at EFA. How, as I've never been to one of these retreats, and they sound incredible. Can you explain to me like how the girls respond and how that kind of like develops over the days, and sort of what the girls and young women, you know, how they adopt it personally to fit them rather than it become something that they're being given?
Well, that's a really nice question. Well, first of all, you know, the girls are so open. They're like, I've been doing a series of interviews for EFA on our Instagram channel, and I also interviewed Jordan from Souljourn Yoga. But one of the other people I interviewed described the girls as sponges. You know, they just want to learn everything. You know, they're just so open, so completely excited by the opportunities they have, because they know that they're just so lucky compared to their mothers, their grandmothers, and maybe also some other girls in their villages. So they really just throw themselves at all the opportunities. And yoga is a really interesting one, because it's not something that's from their culture. I would say that there's something in their culture that's built in that invites a kind of a relaxation that maybe we don't necessarily learn in the Western culture. So they're definitely tuned into that just ability to be more at ease with the life circumstances. But then when you bring that to something like yoga, then something really special opens up. And I know the girls that, you know, they have to study really hard, and you know, they get stressed. Of course, they're teenage girls, there's lots going on in their lives. You know, they have certain family situations, like I mentioned, you know, poverty and different pressures on the family. So it's not like they're not going through things. They're maybe not melodramatic about what's going on, they don't complain, but you know, they've got a lot of pressure. And so when you bring something like yoga into their lives, they really respond well to it. And I know since Jordan has been and run these sessions with the girls, you know, we've got a few yoga mats around in the houses now. And, you know, I've been at the houses when one of the girls has just run a little yoga session with the other girls, you know, because she's really into yoga. Maybe she's watched some videos, been inspired by Jordan, and then, you know, taken the girls through that. So it's definitely when they learn new things, they like to share it with each other. They like to share their learning. It's not something personal for them. And I think with yoga, they probably see it something as a bit more communal rather than a kind of something inner and necessarily solo. Of course, they have their faith, they have their religion in Islam. So they have their times of the day when they're just kind of meditating in their own way. And then the yoga is something that brings everyone together. And it's interesting because we did a really nice project a couple of weeks ago with Souljourn Yoga and Chimera, which is an organization in Rwanda that Souljourn has also been supporting and training young Rwandan women there. And then we had this kind of fundraising session with the Rwandan yoga teachers. And I could see in that culture too, there's something similar. Yoga is something really that brings the community together. And so I can see that really taking off with the girls in Morocco. And actually Jordan and I are hoping when travel opens up to run a sort of teacher training yoga session for the older girls at EFA as well, something that they can take into their communities to help bring relaxation to, especially to other women. And I could see maybe some of the mums also maybe getting into it too. So it'll be interesting to see how that goes.
Entirely. I really like the way you explained the relationship to yoga, because I think there are two sides to it, in the sense that it can be something that you can cultivate tranquility and calm, and then if you have faith, then that can either be something that reinforces it, or you sort of, you make it what it works for you. And I suppose that's the beauty of it, that it has this autonomy. But I love this idea that it's for the young girls, and they teach us something more about community, because in the West, I think the idea around yoga is something that's very performative, and something that's become something that's very it's commercialized, and it's commodification. It doesn't feel like it has that same tangible meaning as it should do. And I think what we hope for it to sort of regain, and I think one of the most incredible things about the organization, about Souljourn and our partnerships with people, is this streamlining effect of the difference that it can have when it's in practice. And I suppose one of my last questions really is, so regarding the teacher training project, which is something that we're looking to the future to just push in every possible way that we can, because this idea of giving this skill set to a young woman and enabling her to make it something personal for her, but also something, like you've said, she can tangibly share with her community, and making it something that, you know, the sky's the limit then, because we know the commercial benefits behind yoga. We know that it has many different avenues in which it can be used and be responded to. Just thinking about how we can work together to achieve that in the future.
Yeah, well, this would be great to, of course, to test out, and you know, we really look forward to just trying it and see how the girls respond. And yeah, when I interviewed Jordan last week, she also spoke about just the importance of this skill being for the local community to use. So rather than just yoga teachers coming into a community, that they have the skills and that they can build some financial independence based on that. And of course, for women, it's really key. I mean, for example, say one of the EFA girls, she completes her 6 years with us, completes her education. She may go on to university, and many of our girls do that now. University's free, so actually it's a great opportunity. We're able to get them up to the level where they can take that step, and that's great. That brings a whole new generation of women who then have the opportunity to do all kinds of professional jobs that they might not have ever been able to do. But some will go back to the village and get married, and that's fine too. And I know a lot of the villages also run these gîtes businesses. So as part of tourism, they will kind of, you know, run a kind of B&B up in the mountains. Now, if she was also able to teach yoga as part of that, for example, that's something that could just really work in that kind of tourism setting. So I think all the skills that the girls can get, whether they go on to do more professional work, or whether it's just that they start their life as a young woman in a more empowered way as an educated woman, whether she then has children and does the more traditional things in the village, all of these extra skills just really make a difference. And of course, the more financial freedom a woman has, it certainly opens up a lot of important benefits in her life. So this is something I'm just wondering if that's a direction that supports those that also stay in the villages. But yeah, it will be really interesting to test it out. And I'm so grateful to Souljourn Yoga, because I love the ethos of true empowerment and really respecting the local communities. And yeah, it already feels just that there's so much authenticity in that it of course, you know, it just opens something for all of us, and hopefully for the girls too. Of course, I've spoken a lot about them, but it would be great to ask them actually about their experiences of yoga. Maybe that's something we can set up, maybe a Zoom call between Souljourn and some of the older girls. You know, how have your experiences been with yoga? How do you use it? What do you feel it brings you and your community? It would be really nice to hear from them directly. But yes, we just want to give the girls every opportunity they can to live the best life they can. because we know that if their life is transformed, it transforms their whole village, their whole community, and of course has an impact on Morocco as a whole. And so, yeah, we will do everything to open that up for them. And we're grateful to have partners like you to really bring, many different aspects to that vision.
That was beautiful. I'm like lost for words, to be honest, but think the idea of setting up a conversation with some of the older women and older girls who are, you know, happy to have that conversation. There are some questions that are only you know, sort of available to be asked to them, things about how meditation, you know, cultivates, you know, better education for them, better employment, and, you know, empowering women as entrepreneurs, as educators, as anything. I think that's the whole idea, is that women are so experienced as being put in this box, as this sense of just knocking the boxes open and giving them the ability to speak for themselves and to answer these questions, that their responses will open up entirely new ways of thinking for us as well. And I just think the reciprocity and the dialogue is just, it's so powerful. And even with Zoom, you still get so much out of this. But I personally can't wait until we can all meet together, be it on a mat or on the floor. So thank you so much for your time. It's been incredible.
My absolute pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you for the invitation. And
anytime.